Hi, it's Ian from the Postal Hub podcast.
And Marek from Last Mile Experts.
And we are the Last Mile Prophets. This is the last word on the last mile. This video is created thanks to Modern Expo, one of the key players in the world's parcel locker market. Modern Expo's product portfolio includes innovative solutions with refrigeration and freezing cells, Bluetooth locks, and even personal parcel lockers. Marek, we were at Parcel+Post Expo just recently, and there were lots of parcel lockers there, and you're like a kid in a sweet shop. I couldn't keep away from them, could I?
Well, I have to say, it was really amazing this time. I don't think I ever remember seeing quite so many different shapes, types, colours, sizes of lockers since Post Expo, or Parcel+Post Expo, I should say, started. So yeah, I felt like I was in a fun fair.
Well, let's have a look at some of the interviews that we recorded at Parcel+Post Expo. Right, so Marek, we're here at the Modern Expo stand where we ran a session yesterday on perfecting parcel locker networks. Actually, where we're standing is actually where the crowd was.
Absolutely.
Yesterday. Actually, we did cover a few interesting things, including this idea of parcel lockers in an urban environment and not just sort of sticking out like a sore thumb anymore.
Absolutely, and I think that's going to be a trend. It's going to be important that lockers not only, should we say, fit in, but they also become part of our lives in the sense that they make our lives easier, more ecological.
Well, yeah, I was going to say the other thing is use of public space, and how can they either take up public space or complement public space and still maintain utility, because there's no point putting a parcel locker in the middle of a park if it means that people will have to make a special trip or it becomes inconvenient for them. You lose the part of the value of parcel lockers, don't you?
Absolutely. Well, I also like things like the fact that you can have rain collected via a locker, which is then recycled, or battery power, solar cells, etc. So I think it's all part of an ecosystem, and you're right, that's going to be the next trend. And what this stand, I think, is all about is that, if you look at the greenery and so on, and I think that probably will be the next trend.
Yeah, so we're going from metal boxes to saying, well, hang on, how modular can they be? How easy are they to set up? And then where should they be located? And how should they be located? So that where we are now.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens next year. Is this going to be a real trend? But I certainly learned a lot yesterday.
It was interesting to see hearing the questions from the audience as well, where their priorities are lying when it comes to setting up a parcel locker network, and the questions about that tipping point of when a locker has reached utility. Is utility the right word?
Utilization.
Utilization.
Absolutely, and that's interesting. And what is too low a utilization level, and what is too high? Too high actually isn't the problem.
Well, then when you get to that issue, then you've got 100% capacity. How can you get those parcels turning over quicker? How can you get each door being used multiple times per day? That's not the holy grail. What is it?
Well, it's pretty close to it, because that's what you really want. And in fact, from an old webinar we did a while ago, I think the best result we saw anywhere was about 800% utilization. So each cell has 8 parcels going through it in one day.
So there's a whole lot of questions that are then not about the metal box or even really the software. It's about customer behaviour. So if you've placed a parcel locker in a zone where it gets a lot of foot traffic, it gets used a lot, it's very convenient for customers, how can you encourage them to collect their parcels quickly? How can you then set up your delivery routes to refill multiple times a day? There's those sorts of questions then, isn't it?
Absolutely. So I think it's about a wider ecosystem. It's a wider, should we say, picture in terms of how it will all work. Let's see. I think it's been really great. We look forward to observing what Modern Expo will do over the next year. And all I can say from my side is it's been fun and enlightening.
So I've got this locker behind us, which is, I'm going to call it a hybrid locker. It's got regular parcels there, and then fresh, and I think it's frozen there.
Yeah, I think it's ambient control, and even, as you said,
there's a solar powered locker over there. There's a food vending machine. So Modern Expo really has a multifaceted sort of approach to storage and locker technology, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and I think I personally am a believer in traditional and next-gen, i.e. parcel lockers, which are battery-powered, but I think we are going to see a lot of new development and innovation.
Well, Marek, we're having a look now at some footage from Bloq.it. Now, what's different about Bloq.it?
And I think that what's interesting about companies like Bloq.it, and particularly Bloq.it itself, is it's a young, dynamically developing startup that looks much more holistically. So the idea, and I think this is going to be something important in the future, is not just to provide a smart locker, but to be able to support clients in setting up their network, in having a complete software solution. So effectively, a plug and play, or maybe turnkey. That's quite good, isn't it? It relates to lockers, turnkey solution. So I think that's the key thing. And I'm really pleased that there are more and more companies beginning to look in this direction. I think they're going to be complementary to some of the long-standing players in the industry. And, you saw this, Ian, there are more lockers than ever, and there has to be development, there has to be more value added. And that's, I think, what companies like Bloq.it offer. So, Robert, it's really good to be here at the Keba stand. Tell us about some of the innovations that you've got.
There's one of the innovations you see here, just behind us. It's the new called Flex GL Locker. And what's new here, you see, also the logistics has a topic that the foundation work is so complicated. So this locker, you need no foundation work, nothing. You can place it just there, and you can easily add also bigger blocks to there. So you can also make a very big locker on a retail store, for example, without needing any preparation. You can do it like classical by the touchscreen, also possible you have app-operated lockers. So all these possibilities are possible here. So all the full range, what you need, we can offer to you. That means it depends on the customer. Is he well known to use apps or not? Or is it a classic locker? All can be done here. We can have a PV on the top, so we need the power connection. So really, it's a very flexible locker to be here on the booth, and thus we see here this new development from Keba.
So effectively, you can bring a forklift, place the locker,
yes.
No power needed.
No power needed, PV, just and you're ready.
So it's what I call a next generation locker. Great.
I would say so, yeah.
And what is the interest? Have you found interest with these machines?
We will do the first pilot with these machines because all this preparation works to find the locations is for the companies difficult. If you says you have nothing to prepare, you can easily put it there. It's much easier to find the location. So I think it's for many companies a good new development. Some others keep on our standard FS stereo for the very big lockers like Parcel+Post Expo, but it's an add-on to have the whole range of lockers possible what the logistics wants to have.
So, Marek, there's 3 companies. So we're going to do a second part of this video, everybody, by the way. So make sure you subscribe or follow us on whatever platform you're watching this on to get this part 2 of this video. So we've seen Modern Expo, we've seen Bloq.it, and we've seen Keba. What are your initial thoughts, Marek?
Well, it's actually quite an interesting selection of companies. So you've got Modern Expo, which is, I'd say, a very fast-growing and quite large operator, which is actually, believe it or not, Polish-Ukrainian company. I didn't realize, but I met the owners. I think we met the owners, in fact, together. And one of the guys is Polish, one of them is Ukrainian. I'm really impressed, despite the challenges, delicately speaking, of the Russian war in Ukraine. They're still producing and actually increasing capabilities. So I think, chapeau bas, very innovative. We've seen the stand, a lot of new and interesting stuff. And I think we've got separate material from our Q&A session there. But that's the first player that we visited. Then we've got Bloq.it, which is a young, dynamic company from Portugal that seems to be taking Second Life lockers by storm. And I think what's interesting there is, the dynamism, the fact that they seem to be moving towards a software type solution rather than just the hardware itself. And then, of course, you've got Keba, who are, I don't know whether we'd say the fathers or fathers is about right. The fathers of the parcel locker. These guys were there from the very beginning, setting off with Deutsche Post on a journey that, has taken us to where we are today in terms of, the proliferation of lockers. Very reliable, solid machines from a very reliable, solid supplier. So it's really interesting. And I think you'll see from the discussions as well, the sort of different stances, which in some ways perhaps are complementary. In some ways, they do show different approaches.
It's interesting to see the different approaches of the companies as well, Marek, because as we've said previously, you could just say, oh, it's a parcel locker, it's a metal box. But it's more than just a metal box. There are the different approaches, whether you've got a screen or without a screen. We've done a whole video on that before. You've got the approach of, are you building purchaser perspective? Are you creating carrier neutral, carrier specific? It's more than just saying, well, I'm just buying a metal box, I'm going to buy the cheapest one.
Absolutely. And what we saw, though, is the big suppliers now, actually virtually all of them are able to offer both what I call a next-gen locker, which is one without the screen, usually battery operated, etc., etc. So like the Swip box, I think, what was it called? Infinity, which was the first one of its kind in Europe. And then you've got the traditional one, which tends to be bigger with a screen, etc., etc. And actually, you know what, Ian, even if I got into a discussion with you on the screens itself, you could talk about why the screens are bigger, smaller, this, that, and so on. But I think, yeah, it's there's a proliferation. But I think the future is going to be more about not just the lockers themselves, but about the software that operates the network. And I can imagine, Ian, that we're going to be moving more and more towards networks that are agnostic of the locker type. So separate to the issue of carrier agnostic, let's call it hardware agnostic. So that's going to be a really interesting
discussion.
I
think that's a really important point, because there are a growing number of carriers out there who've started with one manufacturer, and they've got a few of the others. So they need to be able to need the software to be able to talk to all of them. So everybody, make sure you subscribe to our channel, whether you hit like, subscribe, and the notifications bell if you're watching this, because we'll be doing another video on some of the other manufacturers that we caught up with at Parcel+Post Expo, and you'll be able to see all the other content there that we've created about parcel lockers over the last couple of years. Marek, thanks for being part of this Last Mile Profits video today.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you, everyone.